Hello guys, welcome to my channel Lucid Fanfic, and if you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest videos. So be sure to stick around until the end, and let's get started. The plan was simple. The remaining 14 students at the USJ entrance would split into teams of 2, with Ida acting as speedy support for any injured who needed to be taken to the entrance for immediate medical attention, and Jiro as Overwatch, using her enhanced hearing to codec to warn allies about incoming enemy reinforcements. Each team would go section by section, assisting their fellow student. The teams would then converge back at the entrance in order to wait for the UA staff's arrival. Team 1 consisted of Yururika and Setsuna Tokiichi, who could split her body into sections, fly/levitate, as well as regenerate lost sections. They would go to the ruins zone. Setsuna's flight would allow for easy reconnaissance, whilst Yururika's zero gravity would let her weaponize the environment. Team 2 consisted of Shoji and Shirhai Kurwaro, who could merge with and travel through shadows. They would scale the mountain zone and assist whomever needed it. Shoji's shape-shifting limbs allows for omnidirectional awareness, whilst Kurwaro could travel through all the dark cracks for reconnaissance and sneak attacks. Team 3 consisted of Shiro and Ibara Shiozaki, whose hair was made of thorny vines that she could manipulate at will. They would enter the downpour storm zone and help out best they could. Both had effective capture quirks and could easily move through their environments. Team 4 consisted of Tokoimi and Reiko Yanagi, who possesses limited telekinetic abilities, enough to lift anything the size of a person. They would climb the landslide zone and assist their fellow students. Both had quirks suited for the terrain. Tokoyami and Dark Shadow could easily deal with debris and enemies, whilst Reiko could disrupt the enemy, fling rocks, and save downed allies. Team 5 consisted of Izuku and Mei. They would fly to the flood zone and assist in any way possible. Lastly, Team 6 consisted of Melissa and Rin Hiryu, who could grow and launch durable reptilian scales. They would enter the conflagration zone and get a handle on things. Melissa's suit made her fireproof, whilst Rin's scales made him resistant to the heat. With each team assigned, and with Ida and Jiro on standby, and looking after 13th's unconscious body, they split up and got to work. Ruins Zone. As Yururika and Setsuna made their way to the Ruin Zone, they used their codec to find out that Bakugo, Kamakiri, Toru, and Bondo were all currently engaged in combat with villains. Kamakiri relayed that he and Toru were on the top floor of the ruins dealing with a lady whose body was comprised of stone. Bondo was creating glue traps and dealing with low-tier thugs, whilst Bakugo simply told them all to F off as he could handle himself. And I thought our blonde had an ego, at least ours like his own class. Setsuna lamented to Yururika. You have no idea, replied Yururika, exasperated with her explosive classmate. Whilst the duo made this way towards their closest friend, in this case Bondo. In order to assist them, we see Kamakiri, a boy who appeared to be part insect and could manifest blades from any body part, fighting the previously mentioned stone lady. The lady stood almost 6 feet tall and had an hourglass figure. Her hair was burgundy, and she wore a dark purple dress with the right thigh cut. Her most striking feature, however, was her gray, granular textured stone skin, which appeared to have a polished sheen that was currently repelling every attack Kamakiri was throwing at her. F it, how durable are you? I know my blades can cut steel, yet your skin isn't even chipped, asked Kamakiri in a rhetorical manner. Huh, though toothpicks will never piece my regal skin. Now stop dodging and let me smash you, bug. The villainess replied as her fist smashed a stone pillar to dust with a single attack, whilst Kamakiri barely dodged. Whilst this happening, Toru was wiping the floor with the lady's underlings who couldn't even find her, let alone hit the invisible girl. Need to finish these punks and help out Kamakiri as soon as possible, she thought to herself as a new wave of thugs started trying to attack her. It's like there's an inexhaustible supply of these losers, she continued as she kicked a cleft-jawed hug in the family jewels. Meanwhile, with Yururika, Setsuna, and Bondo. Yururika and Setsuna had just finished helping Bondo with his wave of thugs who were now all stuck to the floor, walls, and ceiling covered in glue and debris. Some were even floating unconsciously due to Yururika's zero gravity. Overall, the trio was mostly unscathed, just a scraps abs bruises. That takes care of these guys, Yururika stated as she deactivated her quirk, letting the floating thugs fall with a loud thump. Yup. So who do we help our next, the loudmouth or our friends? Setsuna asked sarcastically. Let's not wait around them, Kamakiri, and your invisible friend need our help. Interjected Bondo as the trio ran to the top floor. Meanwhile, with Bakugo, contrary to what the blonde had screamed over the codec, he could not handle it himself. Initially, the fight was in his favor. He was gleefully inflicting villains and thugs with intensive care levels damage until he hit a brick wall in the form of a very well-groomed man with mutton-chop facial hair and waiting a high society green and red suit who absorbed the blonde's explosions. Didn't your mother teach you to careful around firecrackers, lad? The man asked as he absorbed yet another explosion with ease. Firecrackers, I'll kill you, you idiot, and teach you not to look down on me. The blonde screamed with rage and confidence. Humph, not one for civilized conversation, are we? Oh, well, time to teach you some discipline, child. The man replied condescendingly, causing Bakugo to attack with stronger explosions, which were all subsequently absorbed. Fight me, you coward! The blonde yelled, getting exhausted. Okay, was the man's reply as he shot towards the hero student at insane speed and gut-shot Bakugo, causing the blonde to vomit up both his breakfast and some vital fluid, only staying conscious out of sheer stubbornness. Just as I thought, you're little more than a glass cannon who's all bark and no bite, only staring upright through willpower alone. But willpower will only get you so far, boy. The man stated as he prepared to smash the blonde's skull with his bare hands. Then suddenly, crash, a huge chunk of debris was thrown at the man so fast he couldn't absorb the kinetic energy in time. What in blazes? Was his only reaction as he was suddenly drenched on glue from the same direction. -4 minutes ago, Uraraka, Setsuna, and Bondo had reached the top floor where they found Kamakiri on his last legs and the stone lady with a very light scratch on her right arm. Off in the corner, they saw a pool of vital fluid getting slowly bigger and heard labored breathing from the same area, denoting it was an injured Toru. You guys sure took your time, Kamakiri stated in between exhausted breathing. Oh, more children come to gaze upon my regal sculpted form and die. The stone lady stayed with a smug grin as she charged Uraraka only to miss and have her gravity stripped from her and thrown into the roof with a loud slam. Huh, what's going on here? The lady yelled, trying to get her bearings. Gooper, Bondo, hurry, she's as heavy as she looks. Uraraka yelled as she began turning green at the gills, as despite the lady's thin physique, she was still made of stone and weighed a ton. As Bondo glued the lady to the ceiling, Setsuna went to check on Toru, who was conscious but injured. You good? Invisible? Setsuna asked. Yeah, tried sneaking up on the woman, but she heard me stumble on some debris and punched me in the gut. I'll live, but I'm not fighting anytime soon. The invisible girl replied before passing out. We should call Ida for a medical pickup. I'll take Toru down to meet him. You guys go help out the blonde, Setsuna stated as she descended the floors. Following the explosions, Uraraka, Bondo, and Kamakiri located Bakugo just before he was about to be killed. In an instant, Kamakiri cleaved out a chunk of the wall, and Uraraka threw it at the man, and Bondo sent a wave of glue at Bakugo's assailant. Curse you guys, I had him, the blonde stated as he collapsed for pain in his gut. If that's your way of saying thank you for saving my life, then you're welcome, Uraraka replied sarcastically as the blonde flipped her off. F it, I won't lose to you people, the well-groomed man yelled as he broke out of his debris and glue prison, using the energy he had absorbed from Bakugo's explosions, looking much less groomed with his suit torn up and covered in dust and glue. He charged Kamakiri only to get a slash to his chest that he barely dodged, only to get shot in the back by Bondo's glue, which signaled his defeat as Uraraka began throwing debris, and Kamakiri, using his second wind, began a flurry of slashed, both of which funneled the man into getting hit with more and more blue until he could no longer move and passed out from exhaustion and adrenaline withdrawal. Yes, we won, yelled Uraraka. Yeah, after I softened him up for you extras, replied Bakugo as he stared, getting back up, clutching his stomach, and walking away. Just can't say thank you, can he? Bondo stated as he, Kamakiri, and Uraraka followed the blonde, who refused all help. Landslide zone. Whilst the battle in the ruins was occurring, Tokumi and Reiko made their way towards the landslide zone, and using the codec, discovered that things were not great. Apparently, Todoroki took out nearly all the villains in one go, but was now having trouble with two female villains who were also giving trouble to Pony Suntory, Kozai Tsuburaba, and Sun Kaibara. so our duo picked up the pace to help their classmates. As they arrived, they saw the situation. It was not good. Cozy Eye and Pony were pinned by a blonde female villain who appears to be able to control earth and rock telekinetically and was pelting the duo of hero students with boulders and shape stones. Cozy Eye was creating air barriers as fast as possible, whilst Pony was destroying the boulders and repelling the smaller rocks using her launched horns. Whilst this was occurring, Todoroki was in bad shape. His skin was deathly pale, and his lips were blue. Normally his ice was effective against nearly every opponent, but except this foe. The villain was a woman with deep blue skin and light blue spiked hair. She clearly had a resistance to the cold. Also, she appeared to possess the ability to absorb heat and turn it into cold, which Tokoyami girded from the corpses littering the women's feet, all appearing to have died from extreme rapid frostbite. She was using to try to encase Todoroki, whose only saving grace was that Kaibara was using his gyrate quirk to turn his limbs into makeshift drills and destroying the ice before the bicolored boy could be encased. Tokoyami and Reiko split up to assist, with Reiko assisting against the geokinetic, whilst Tokoyami helped against the ice women. When Reiko reached her classmates, she used her quirk to catch as many rocks as she could and sent them back, stunning the villainess. "Where did you come from, Ghost Girl?" the geokinetic asked in an angry tone. "Here you are, Reiko. You're," Pony said in broken Japanese with a joyous tone. "It's good to have backup," stated Cozy Eye, relieved to have assistance. "Don't ignore me, idiots," the geokinetic villain yelled as she hurled another boulder with exhaustive effort, which the Class 1B trio dodged. "She seems to prefer long-range combat," Reiko stated as the trio took covered in a landslide alcove whilst obscured by a dust cloud kicked up by the thrown boulder. "We noticed that from all the boulders and stones she threw at us. You got a plan to deal with it?" Cozy Eye asked, hoping for a good plan. "Yes, I do. First, Pony, send as many horns as you can round to her back. Tsuburaba, get ready, because when she reacts, I'm going to throw you into melee range. Hit her as hard as you can," Reiko replied and translated for Pony. The plan didn't sit quite well with Cozy Eye, but in lieu of no other plan, he accepted it. As the villainess searched for her quarry, suddenly heard something flying through the air. She couldn't see it. Predicting an attack from behind, she raised the ground behind her just in time to box several projectiles. "How did you think a sneak attack would work on me?" the villainess yelled, turning around taunt whoever she thought was behind her, only to hear yelling from where she was initially looking. She turned to see a young man flying at her, fist up, raised and fast. Then she could react. She was punched in her left melon. "You pervert," the villainess yelled, socking Cozy Eye in the face and preparing to kill him, when suddenly a rock the size of a grapefruit struck the side of her head, knocking her unconscious. "Not entirely to plan, but I'll take it," stated Reiko awkwardly. "You find Tsuburaba there?" asked Pony again in broken Japanese. "I'll live," was Cozy Eye's reply. "Good. Now to help out the others," Reiko said with determination as the trio made their way to their friends. With the fight with the geokinetic done, we see that Tokoyami isn't faring well with his group. The ice woman was making the air freezing cold by absorbing its heat, and Todoroki wasn't making things better for anyone, most of all himself, as the bicolored boy was now suffering from severe frostbite on his right side, and Kaibara wasn't doing much better as his limbs were also now suffering from the cold and temperature imbalance. The Shadow Wielder had to think of a plan to deal with this ice and cold. A direct assault from Dark Shadow should be enough, but with all this ice, I can't get a clear line of sight without leaving both of us susceptible to attacks. Revelry in darkness, if only we had a fire user, Tokoyami thought, to himself, oblivious to Todoroki's secret. Suddenly the ice stopped. Tokoyami hoped it was due to the ice women running out of steam. However, when he looked out from the ice wall he was hiding behind, he saw that the women had merely shifted her priority to Reiko's group, who had just rocked up and was now also being pelted with ice attacks. The bird-headed boy took his chance and launched Dark Shadow at full speed towards the ice women, who barely managed to dodge. "Thought I got you, bird brain. Oh well, I've got enough juice to freeze all you loser hero students," the ice woman yelled with venom in her voice. As she prepared a massive attack against the two groups, a glacier suddenly enveloped her up to her neck. Tokoyami was stunned as he had Todoroki was on his last legs. Turning to look at his ally, who was out cold in the most literal sense. In a final desperate act, he unleashed more ice than he should have been able to handle, and now nearly his entire right side was covered in frost and suffering severe frostbite. The boy himself was completely unconscious. How did he do that? The now frozen villainess asked whilst uncontrollably shivering. No clue. Ice Queen now lights out, stated Dark Shadow as it punched her lights out in one attack. No pleasantries between the groups could be made as Tokoyami panicked into his codec. Todoroki is down. I repeat, Todoroki is down. He used his quirk too much and is now suffering from severe frostbite. Ida, I need you at the landslide zone now. The avian boy yelled through the codec. F it, we need to get him someplace warm before gangrene sets in and he starts losing extremities. The avian boy called to his comrades who immediately began to help move the frozen over boy. What a mad banquet of darkness today is turning into. I hope my other compatriots are safe. Tokoyami thought to himself. Mountain Zone. As the intrepid duo of Shoji and Shirhai made their way towards the mountain zone with all haste, they discover via the codec that they are to assist Tetsu, Momo, Manga, and Kaminari, who are all currently in combat with numerous villains. To this end, Shirhai enters the mountain's dark cracks to expeditiously make his way towards his classmates, while Shoji begins to scale the mountain using his many appendages. Hold out as long as you guys can. Help is on the way. Shoji announced over the local codec to reassure his classmates that they will have backup momentarily. Hope you guys brought bug spray, cause we've got a pest problem. Manga replied in a panic, causing both Shoji and Shirhai to wonder what he's talking about. Shirhai didn't have to wait long, however, as he reached the top of the zone to witness something horrific, an enough buzzing sphere of bugs, more specifically mosquitoes. Ignore Genos and replace the buildings with mountainous cliff faces. What in the name of the void is that? Shirhai asked himself in utter terror at the large black vital fluid sucking sphere. That would be approximately 5 billion mosquitoes being controlled by a villain. Momo replied as she approached the monochrome boy with a look of desperation on her face. How are you guys still alive? That many's mosquitoes would drain you all alive in seconds. Shirhai stated as he frantically tried to think up a plan. It appears that the villain has some serious tunnel vision. She pulled Tetsu into that sphere and has been trying to drain him for that last 10 minutes to no avail. Momo replied, reminding Shirhai of his classmate's quirk. They can't get through his steel skin, can they? Which means he's safe, at least for now. Shirhai stated, getting a curious look from Momo. So long as he has iron in his body, he'll be fine, but he's going to run out eventually, and then those vampire bugs are going to chug him like a wild berry Capri Sun. Shirhai stated dramatically as he informed Momo of the Steel Boy's ticking clock. Wait, where's Manga and Kaminari? Shirhai asked worryingly. Behind one of the rocks. Manga is having a slight panic attack. Did you know he suffered from entomophobia? Whilst Kaminari is currently stupid. Momo informed Shirhai, as well as asking the boy about his classmate. Haven't talked to him that much yet, so no. Also, what do you mean by stupid? Shirhai replied. Kaminari overloaded his brain using his quirk when the mosquito villain attacked him initially, and he fried a few million mosquitoes in the blast bust. Now his brain is shorted out. Momo stated, slightly embarrassed for the electric boy. Okay, so we need a good plan then between the two of us. Shirhai stated firmly. Wait, where's Shoji? Wasn't he with you? Momo asked, referring to Shirhai's partner. Currently dealing with another villain on a plateau just below you guys. I'll deal with them, you deal with the mosquitoes. The octolimbed boy replied over the codec. So it's just us two then. Momo stayed with a weary sigh. Okay, then let's think of a plan of attack then. Shirhai said, enthusiastically, hoping Momo would be hyped up and think of a good plan. Alright then, I think I have the beginnings of a plan. I just hope it doesn't end up hurting your classmate. Momo stayed ominously. Kanochi Zankaku, aka Mosquito Girl, was currently incredibly pissed off. Her mosquitoes were making no headway in drawing the sliver-haired boy's vital fluid, and the others had eluded her. F it, how long does it take to drain one boy? I'm starving. She complained to herself from within her sphere of mosquitoes. She had loved these bugs ever since she was born with her Mosquito Queen quirk. She had a bond with them. They were her loving subject, and she was their queen. Unfortunately, that lightning boy had fried over 13 million of her beloved subjects in a cascade massacre, which she felt through her link with each one. It pissed her off even more. Just then, whoosh, almost 500 million of her subjects were suddenly incinerated by an explosion of flame. She quickly pulled her remaining subjects back to avoid a simpler fate. She scanned the area and saw the source of her subjects' demise. Momo had created an M132 rotary grenade launcher with incendiary rounds and had blasted the sphere with one of them, temporarily revealing Tetsu, who was currently covering his facial orifices to prevent mosquitoes getting inside. The young man took a deep breath before being dragged into the black swarm once again. Okay, so Tetsu is still alive, but he's likely running out of time and iron. Keep firing those rounds at random intervals and get that villain closer to the ground so I can grab him. Then all three of us can take her at once, then we can all go help Shoji. Shirhai said over the codec to Momo. Got it. The creation girl replied as she opened fire. By the fourth shot, the black sphere had significantly reduced in size and had dropped lower to the ground. Turns out lifting a young man with steel skin is rather taxing on creatures that barely weigh over 2 milligrams. F it, where the hell did she get a military-grade weapon, and with incendiary rounds no less? If she keeps this up, I'm going to lose all my sweet mosquito subjects. That water claw monster, if he'd stuck with me, these pests would be dead, but no. Your mosquitoes distract me and throw off my vibrational sense, blah blah blah, you coward. The now seething villainess thought to herself, which was just enough of a distraction to allow Shirhai to rescue Tetsu by jumping between the darkness and shadows of the mosquitoes. F it, fine, I'll kill them with my own two clawed hands. Mosquito Girl thought to herself. Hey buddy, you okay? Shirhai asked his steely friend as his skin turned back to normal. I'll live, dude. Just need some iron intake, and I'll be back up to full manliness. Tetsu replied with his usual testosterone-fueled bravado. Hate to break up the reunion, but we've got company. Looks like the main villain is deciding to fight now, and they look rather fierce. Momo interjected as she gave Tetsu some condensed iron supplements to refuel his quirk. The trio then looked towards the now revealed villainess. She looked like a human mosquito hybrid. Her feminine torso, forearms, and thighs were all human, as well as most of her head, but beyond that she was all mosquito. Her legs had 3 additional zigzag bent joints endings in dual hooked claws. Her arms below the elbow were elongated significantly and had enormous hooked claws where her hands would have been. She had a mosquito vital fluid sac protruding from where her spine and pelvis bone met, which pulsated red with the vital fluid of previous victims. She had large insect-like wings protruding from her back that permitted flight. Lastly, her head had compounded eyes on top of her skull with a large spike protruding from between them, and 2 long whip-like appendages ending again hooked claws falling from either side of her head. She looked like a monster from an old pre-Quirk manga. So the vampire queen finally shows herself, Shirhai stated as he prepared to fight this monstrosity. Momo merely swapped out her grenade launcher for a bow staff, and Tetsu reactivated his quirk. You 3 are going to pay for what you've done to my sweet subjects, especially you black-haired bimbo. The villain stated calmly up until she singled out Momo, in which she screamed her words with venom and disdain, which scared the young hero in training. At incredible speed, the villainess flew right at the trio, claws prepped to slice them into luncheon meat. Unfortunately for her, however, Tetsu threw himself into her part, and his steely body was too tough for her to cut through, leading her merely impacting the young man, causing his to slide back a few feet. Before she could pull away, however, she was met with fist to the gut by Shirhai, who used her shadow to attack from below and a sack across the spine by Momo, using her bow staff. This battle continued for several minutes as Mosquito Girl's claws required close range, and whenever she attempted to attack, she was always intercepted by Tetsu, who on numerous occasions grabbed her to prevent her from flying away, only to let go after she attempted to headhunt him with her giant horn right in his eye. And whenever she was caught, she was hanged up on by the other 2. After the battle entered its 11th minute, Mosquito Girl waxed beyond pissed. She was seething with rage. However, her plan let her stay, knowing she had backup on its way. During the battle, she had sent out signals to gather more mosquitoes and for them to collect as much vital fluid as they could from other villains. As soon as they arrived, she would drink all the vital fluid, heal her wounds, and attain enough power to kill every last person in the facility. And then she heard it, a rhythmic, buzzing noise fast approaching. Buzz. The loud, buzzing noise revealed itself as another black cloud with hints of red came into view. Another gigantic swarm of mosquitoes appeared. Ha ha ha. At last my subjects return with spoils delicious vital fluid. With it I'll grow powerful enough to kill every last loser hero student in this facility. Heck, I might even try fighting All Might when he finally decides to show. Ha ha ha, you guys are so screwed. Now my subjects empty all your delicious juices into me. Mosquito Girl yelled triumphantly as the swarm of mosquitoes made their way towards her. However, she would never get to reap the rewards as suddenly. Shrack boom. The entire swarm went up into an enormous fireball, annihilating every last mosquito and reducing the entire swarm to dust. What would happen? How were they all destroyed? Mosquito Girl asked in total disbelieving shock. Take that, you vital fluid-sucking, parasitic, insectoid, yelled one manga who up until now had been hiding due to his phobia of insects, a fear that originated from the day he learned about how hundreds of insects eat paper, the thing his head was partially made of. But after seeing the latest swarm and hearing the villainess's speech about killing everyone, he knew he had to do something. So he mustered all the courage he could and pushed his quirk to its limit to manifest the strongest onomatopoeia he could in order to annihilate the swarm. You monster, I'll kill you. Mosquito Girl screamed, charging the now weakened and scared manga-headed boy in a blind rage, only to be hit by a canister fired by Momo that detonated in a shower of DEET, a chemical used to repel insects like mosquitoes and ticks, and anesthetic, causing the villain to fall unconscious after vomiting slightly from the chemical insect repellent. You all right there, manga? Tetsu asked, worries about his classmate's health. Yeah, I'll live, manga stated weakly before falling unconscious from utter terror. The trio remaining still conscious trio then tied up the unconscious villains, being extremely thorough with Mosquito Girl, and went to check on their classmates. Manga was of course unconscious, but was slowly waking up, and Kaminari was just now regaining awareness of his surroundings and what little intelligence he possessed. You all right now, Kaminari? Momo asked. Yeah, I'm good now. Love to hear how you kicked that mosquito swarm's arse, but I think we should get back to the entrance as fast as possible. The electrokinetic replied. Wait, we have to help Shoji. He's been all on his own this entire time. Shirhai interjected, suddenly remembering his partner. Shoji, where are you? Shirhai asked over the codec, getting no reply, causing panic amongst the hero students who quickly started searching for their multi-armed friend. After a few minutes, Kaminari looked over a cliff and saw his classmate, on the ground, bleeding, barely conscious. After informing the others, they all made their way down to the injured student, unknowingly revealing their locations to Shoji's assailant. As the hero students made their way towards Shoji to help him, Tetsu tripped just as Momo and the others got to Shoji. As he was getting up, he saw water emerging from the ground in his peripheral vision. Shoji, are you okay? Who did this to you? Momo asked frantically as she created first aid supplies. While water. Shoji responded weakly. Oh, you need water. Okay, give me a minute. Momo replied. No, water. Shoji yelled, pointing at the water that was emerging from the ground beside Tetsu's head and morphing into a hand shape. Panicking, Tetsu pulled away and attempted to activate his quirk, only for the water to finish morphing into a clawed hand and strike. Replace Kakyoin with Tetsu. The water's sudden attack slashed Tetsu's eyes and face, causing his to fall backwards in pain, and hit his head, causing him to fall unconscious. What the hell is that? Yelled Kaminari, jumping to his feet and charging his electricity. Water. Controlled by someone at top of mountain. Shoji stated weakly, incoming the others of the water controller's location. Senses. Vibrations to attack. He continued, having figured out the villain's method of attack from fighting it using his own enhanced senses. The water was about to attack Tetsu. Thanks to some quick thinking, Manga quickly threw a loose rock, and as it hit the ground, the water suddenly attacked and destroyed it. That got its attention. Now how do we beat an opponent that can see us, but we can't see them? Manga asked, hoping someone would have a good plan. Shoji said the controller was on the mountain top. If there are cracks leading all the way there, I should be able to enter the shadows and get to them and knock them out, but I need you guys to distract them. Shirhai stated, getting a nodding agreement from the others. Go. I'll take care of Shoji and help out Kaminari and Manga in distracting the water. Momo stated firmly, leaving no room for argument as she patched up Shoji's wounds. And so they did. Shirhai entered the shadows of the mountain cracks and started scaling the mountain to its peak, whilst Amanda and Kaminari started moving as much as possible to distract the enemy. However, it would not help. Mountain Zone Peak. So they think constant movement will be enough to blind me. Such fools already know each of the exact locations, including the stationary one. Although one of them appears to have vanished, they must be able to hide the vibrations or fly. No matter, I can deal with that later. The villain thought to themselves as they targeted Shoji and Momo, completely unaware of Shirhai, approaching him at high speed through the shadows. So I found the villain. He's just sitting there cross-legged on top of this peak. He looks to be blind and is using a cane to hear vibrations. So the water is the only aspect to his quirk. The vibration sensing is all skill. Kinda gotta respect that. Shirhai thought to himself as he emerged from the villain's shadow right beside him. Got you, the villain stated, scaring Shirhai, but no water attacked him as he realized the villain must have been referring to one of his friends at the bottom of the mountain, which only made him panic more. So the large injured one managed to dodge my strike somehow. No matter, I'll simply go for that one, the metal one I got earlier. He seems vulnerable enough, the villain stated ominously, obviously referring to Tetsu. Shirhai couldn't take it any longer, so he attacked, going straight for the back of the villain's neck, knocking him unconscious just before his water hand killed Tetsu. Shirhai was slightly shocked at the sheer anticlimax of battling this villain, but he was thankful that the villain didn't send him coming and kill him instead of going to suddenly fall, feeling a sharp pain in his ankle, seeing water to seep into the ground. During the attack that he made on the villain must have had called on his water hand and stuck the young hero in the ankle, causing him to fall, but it was nothing life-threatening. He just wouldn't be running anytime soon. He made his way back down the mountain peak using his quirk, and then proceeded to tell the others about the villain and his abilities. They were shocked to hear the villain's ability to sense vibrations was nothing but skill, not a quirk. Afterwards, they called Ida on the codec for pickup for Shoji and Shirhai. God, today has been so stressful. I hope the heroes arrive soon and it gets better, Momo thought to herself wishfully as she left the zone with her classmates. Conflagration zone. As Melissa and Rin made their way towards the conflagration zone, they used the codec to communicate with their classmates and discovered that they would need to assist Monoma, Mina, Shota, and Ojiro. Apparently, Mina's acid was evaporating in the heat, and both Ojiro and Shota were already exhausted due to the heat, and Monoma was just complaining about both his allies and the villain's quirks being useless. As the rescue duo entered the zone, the unforgiving heat immediately struck Rin, whilst it was only mildly noticeable to Melissa, who had activated her internal cooling system. Jesus, it's hot on here, really regretting making my costume black, though I'm guessing you're also feeling the effects, huh? Rin stated as he referred to Melissa's mostly black and dark gray armor. Actually, I'm fine. My internal cooling system is doing its job, and if need be, I can just have the nanobots recolor my armor. Melissa replied, shocking Rin at how advanced her suit was. As they made their way further into the zone, they came across villains who attempted to attack them, only to be met with a barrage of scales and repulsor blasts from Rin and Melissa. As they found their fellow students, they looked to be exhausted from both fighting the villains and the extreme heat, though their classmates' spirits brightened as they saw the rescue duo. Hey, it's Melissa, we're saved. You guys are so screwed now, Mina yelled in excitement, as well as threatening the villains who were assaulting them. Oh please, one guy in a blindfold and a girl in a suit of armor. You losers really were that weak? A villain with bone armor replied in a mocking tone. Melissa's only response was to reveal her weapons in all their advanced Saigo glory. Upon seeing how well-equipped Melissa was, the villains had only one collective response. Oh no, was the general consensus amongst the villains as Melissa lay waste to them with non-lethal repulsors, rockets, micromissiles, and slugs, leaving every villain on the floor incapacitated, in pain, and/or unconscious. Well, all's well that ends well, as they say, Melissa said, ignoring the boggle-eyed looks of the Class 1B classmates. Well, look at this, a member of the great Class 1A. Come to hog all the glory for yourself, have you? Monoma said with a snarky and smug tone as his fight-or-flight response told him to shut up around the Amazonian in power armor. As this was occurring, Shota and Rin just looked on in embarrassment whilst Mina, Ojiro, and Melissa, after having dealt with Bakugo for about a week, simply ignored him. They'd gotten used to tuning out egotistical ramblings. I bet you haven't even considered our needs in this abyssal hellscape of a zone, have you? So got anyone in that tin suit to help with all this heat, huh? Monoma continued on, attempting to embarrass or humiliate the Class 1A student. In response, Melissa simply walked up to the blonde, deactivated her helmet, looked down at him, and smiled as her suit released a gaseous mixture of nitrogen gas and tetrafluoroethane. It's a gas commonly used in fridges to keep perishable food from spoiling. As a result, the immediate area around her cooled considerably to a rather comfortable level of temperature. Finally, Melissa spoke. "Sorry, I wasn't paying attention. I was too busy recalibrating my suit's cooling system to release this refreshing mist." "What were you saying again?" Melissa stated with a hint of smugness that shut Minome up. As everyone was basking in the refreshing mist, Melissa reactivated her helmet and did a biometric scan of her classmates, to which she found no significant injuries. "So if everyone's nice and cool now, we should make our way." Melissa didn't finish as Mayday warned her of an incoming attack from the left. "Everyone move," Melissa shouted as she shoved everyone out of the way of an enormous wall of flame engulfed her in her entirety. "Hey, we got one, Volcana, we got one," yelled a man wearing a yellow jumpsuit with red pauldrons that linked and fed into a diamond-shaped chest piece. His hair was blonde, and his face donned a gray skull tattoo. "Calm down, Pyro, sweetie. Don't get too excited, yet there's still 5 more to deep fry." The woman, apparently named Volcana, replied in a sensuous voice to the now named Pyro. Volcana herself wore burnt red skin-tight vinyl jeans and a crop top with a rack window of the same color, as well as a matching set of gloves. "Melissa, you monsters will pay for that," Mina yelled as she launched globs of industrial-grade acid at the duo, only for Volcana to self-combust and Pyro to manipulate the flames to vaporize the acid mid-flight. The hero students looked on in terror as the temperature suddenly surged upwards to a highly uncomfortable 47 degrees Celsius due to Volcana's quirk, and showed no sign of stopping. Pinky there thought her likely bliss could even get to us, honey, how sad," Pyro taunted in a mocking tone of voice, whilst Volcana simply laughed as the duo prepared another enormous attack. In response, Mina fell to her with tears in her eyes as her fellow classmates froze on fear. Even Minoma's ego-fueled confidence failed him. "Any last words, hero losers?" Volcana asked mockingly as Pyro aimed the attack. "Would you guys like a joint cell when we send you to jail?" a voice said, emerging from the still raging flames that engulfed Melissa. Both hero and villain looked as they saw a fire demon emerge. "How we totally toasted you, Beach. How'd you survive?" Pyro yelled in abject terror. "Adamantium laminated in carbon nanotubes and hafnium carbide," Melissa stated as the flames that engulfed her ceased to flare and died out. "Hell, no, it's probably just her quirk. If we keep hitting her, it'll fail her eventually," Volcana stated, trying not to lose her composure. Thusly, the pyrotechnic duo unleashed attack after attack against Melissa's nearly indestructible armor, growing more and more tried after each successive attack, until they finally ran out of juice. Melissa simply strolled towards the now exhausted villains and conked them on the head once each, knocking them both unconscious. "Sorry about the scare, you guys. Their attack caught me off guard," Melissa said cheerfully as she retracted her helmet, showing a $1 million smile. "Melissa, you're alive. I thought they got you," Mina yelled in relief as she ran towards the Amazonian with intent to hug. "Mina, wait," Melissa started, but was too late, as Mina engaged in a hug for 1 nanosecond, before pulling back in pain, seeing as whilst Melissa was unharmed, her suit's outermost layer was scalding hot, which led to Mina getting second-degree burns on her hands and lower arms. "Sorry, Mina, but my armors is still cooling from the onslaught of fire attacks," Melissa stated as she released another cooling mist and asked Ojiro to tend to Mina's burns as she handed him some medical supplies. After giving Mina medical attention and tying up all the villains, they all began to make their way towards the zone's exit. They all hoped that the heroes would arrive soon to assist them and end this exercise-turned-living nightmare. However, one of our intrepid heroes suddenly got a call. "Melissa, it's May. Izu just got a call and said he needs our help in the main plaza. Something about a monster and the teachers being down and injured. I'm heading there now. Hurry up and get there as soon as possible." May cried frantically over the codec, causing Melissa to swivel on a dime towards her other classmates. May just called. She and Izuku need help at the plaza. I've got to go. Get to the entrance. I have faith in you, she said quickly before using her repulsors to fly towards the main plaza. "God, I hope I arrive in time." May sounded sacred, and if Izuku and his insanely strong suit needed help, Then whatever is at the plaza must be insanely powerful. Melissa thought to herself, hoping to arrive and assist her oldest friend. Don't worry, Izu, I'm coming. She thought to herself, sheer determination filling every cell of her being as she rocketed towards the main plaza. Downpour Zone. As Ibra and Ciro made their way towards the downpour zone, they used their codec to determine who was inside the zone and who required help. They found out that most of the villains had already been beaten with only 2 Tensing. Kendo and Aoyama were battling a man who could turn his limbs into water, whilst Komori and Shinso were fighting another man in a white mask who appeared to be able to manipulate the rain. The rescue duo split up to assist their classmates. As Ciro made his way towards his classmates, he caught sight of enemy, giving them so much trouble. The man's physique was straight out of an 80s action film. His hair was brown and short. He wore a blue jumpsuit and a ferocious face not too dissimilar from Bakugo's. The most notable trait was, however, of course, his water limbs that were currently trying to crush Kendo and Aoyama. Hey guys, I'm here to help, Ciro exclaimed whilst waving to his friends, while simultaneously informing the villain of his existence. Great, another hero twerp. I hate you self-righteous idiots. Always taking the credit from real heroes. The villain exclaimed, which caused Ciro to recognize him. Hey, you're that ex-firefighter who turned to villainy after too many heroes took credit for your actions, Aquaman or something. Ciro blurted out, somewhat stunning the villain. Hydraman. And yeah, that's me. And I'm here to kill all you trumped-up glory hogs. Now die. The villain stated as he raced towards Ciro with fist upraised. But this tunnel vision allowed Aoyama to hit the man in the back with his quirk, sending the villain over Ciro's head and crashing into a fake building. Nice shot, Aoyama. Ciro yelled at his far-off friend, whose only response was to pose dramatically with a smug smile. Curse, you monsters, I'll kill you all. Enough having fun. Prepare to die. The villain yelled with a crazed face with a bleeding scale as he jammed a syringe of red liquid into his neck. He then began absorbing as much water in the local vicinity, causing his limbs to vastly increase in size and morph until he stood 25 feet tall in a mech suit comprised of water. Only his face is outside the water to allow himself to breathe. You gotta be kidding me. How did he do that? Kendo yelled, watching this monstrosity rise. He jammed a needle in his neck. I think it might have been Trigger. Ciro replied nervously. Du Don Lucille comment Puvon's news fair face until monstra? God in heaven, how do we face such a monster? Aoyama stated in utter terror. Ciro, does your tape dissolve in water? Kendo asked the tape user, quickly thinking of a plan. Yeah, but only temporarily, about 8 seconds before it dissolves. Why though? He could easily snap my tape before I grab him. Ciro replied with some confusion to Kendo's intentions. I have plan. Aoyama, I know I may be asking a lot, but I need you to continuously blast that guy until I can set up with Ciro. I have a plan, but we need some time. Kendo told the Frenchman, getting a queasy look from him. Oui, mademoiselle. I can. Just please be quick, my tummy doesn't like long usage periods. Aoyama replied with an uneasy confidence. At this point, Hydraman had just gotten used to his new tremendous power and size, but was unprepared for Aoyama's barrage of attacks and Kendo's plan. Sham. Aoyama opened fire with his particle beams, cutting through the villain's watery limbs, but as fast as he cut them off, they replaced themselves. This thoroughly annoyed the villain. F it. FSHAM, stop that, you. FSHAM, you shiny monster. Sham, the villain cried out as Aoyama fired beam after beam, getting sicker by the minute, but determined to not let his friends down. After a veritable onslaught of particle blasts, Aoyama fell to his knees in agony due to quirk overuse, hoping he'd bought enough time for Kendo to enact her plan with Ciro. Any last words, you tiny weakling? The villain asked Aoyama condescendingly as his water limbs used the heavy rain to regenerate in seconds. Plus Ultra, were Aoyama's weakened last words as he fell unconscious from the pain. How pathetic, the villain retorted as he raised a fist to splatter the hero student. However, suddenly, get away from my friend, Ciro yelled as he came flying at the villain. -8 minutes ago with Ciro and Kendo. So what's your plan? Be quick, Aoyama can't hold out for too long. Ciro stated in a panic. I'm going to launch you, was Kendo's reply. Wait, you mean like a fastball special? Are you strong enough? Am I light enough? Ciro asked. No, improbably. But that's beside the point. We're going to use the rubber tires from one of these fake cars to rig up a slip shot between the lamp poles and launch you at the villain. You'll then grab the villain's exposed head and pull him out of his water Gundam and throw him. The landing should shock and disable him," Kendo stated, laying out her plan, to which Zero gave her a slight hesitant look, but lacking a plan of his own, accepted the plan and got to work helping Kendo rig up the slingshot. Present. After yelling at the villain, Zero, launching towards the villain, unrolled meters of tape and wrapped the villain's head with it, and using his momentum as he flew overhead, pulled the villain from his watery mech, and the resultant upwards force through the villain brain inside his skull, knocking him unconscious. However, something Kendo nor Zero thought about was how Zero was going to land, which ended with the tape hero crashing into one of the fake cars and the villain landing on the concrete road, both injuring themselves in the process. Zero sustained a concussion, his helmet prevented a skull fracture, and a broken arm, whilst the villain suffered numerous broken ribs, a concussion, and multiple lacerations. As a result, Kendo raced over to help out whilst calling Ida for a medical evacuation for both Aoyama and Zero along with the villain. Meanwhile, with Ibara, Komori, and Shinso, whilst Zero was assisting Kendo and Aoyama, Ibara had been lending both Komori and Shinso as much assistance as she could in facing the strange white-masked villain they spoke of over the codec. The man, who politely introduced himself as Blackmore when Ibara arrived, was rather strange in his attire. He wore a full-body covering dark blue raincoat. He wore a white hockey-like mask with a red, green, and blue strip painted across it at an angle. A long tuft of blonde hair spilled out between the mask and his coat's hood. Lastly, he wielded a lilac-purple umbrella which was unfurled and appeared to be most aesthetic purposes only. From what Komori and Shinso told her, the villain appeared to be able to manipulate the rain, shown as he was currently using the droplets as steps to levitate in the air and launching rain droplets in creamy shapes to act as razor-bladed projectiles. Not only that, but according to Komori, when she got frustrated with the villain, she threw a rock at him, and he somehow became the rain, as she put it, as the rock passed through the villain as if he was made of water. So we have a villain who can fly, launch deadly projectiles, and can become temporarily immune to our attacks. Wait, can't Shinso control Mind's Way, hasn't he? Ibara thought to herself. Shinso, why have you not used your quirk on him? Ibara asked the brainwasher curiously. My quirk only works when my target answers, and other than giving his name, this guy's been dead quiet. I've tried every trick I know to get people to reply. I've tried insulting him, his manhood, his mother. I've attempted to play on ego and insecurities. I even tried asking if I could get a cut of his pay if I helped him. He hasn't said a single word. Shinso replied, truly lost on how to get the stoic villain reply. What about your spores, Komori? Can't they weaken him? Ibara asked her mushroom-loving classmate. I've tried, but the force of the rain is making it impossible to get them close enough to take effect. The mushroom girl replied. I know Komori speaks using mushroom puns, but I'm not good at that, so don't accept any. So our first order of business is to somehow get him out the sky and into a building to cut him off from the rain, since that's most likely his quirk's power source. Ibara stayed, getting nods of agreement from her classmates as they dodge another barrage of water cutter attacks from the villain. Shinso, Komori, I have a plan to beat him, but we need to execute a perfectly timed plan. Ibara informed her classmates over the codec to prevent the villain from getting wise to them. What are those three up to? The rude one is attempting to hide in a building whilst the other two are staying outside. Do they think there is a phone in there? Blackmore thought to himself, preparing another barrage of sharp water cutters. Suddenly, Ibara sent out a wave of vines in an attempt to bind the villain. In response, Blackmore merely dodged and merged with the rain to avoid them. Did her teammates not tell her about my intangibility, or has she figured out my time limit for becoming the rain? No matter, I'll just kill her first. Blackmore thought to himself, not paying attention to the windows to the building behind him. Shinso looked out the building's window at the back of the rain villain, hoping that the villain would be too busy with Ibara to take notice of him. Here goes nothing, he thought to himself as he opened the window quietly. Instantly, he jumped from the window with the goal of taking the villain by surprise and grabbing him, and he succeeded. Gah, what the hell are you doing? Blackmore uttered as he lost focus on his quirk and fell from the sky in Shinso's grasp. Thud! The hero-villain duo hit the ground with an awful impact, separating them and causing the villain's mask to fall off. Before he could stand back up, Blackmore was suddenly ensnared by Ibara's vines and bound within a fake bus stop away from the ring. Then Komori ran up to him and blasted him in the face with spores. "What was that you beach?" Blackmore asked angrily. "Mushroom spores." Komori replied with a sadistic smile as she activated her quirk. Pop, 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 pop. Mushrooms started popping up all over Blackmore, draining him of energy until he fell unconscious. "Shinso, are you all right, my friend?" Ibara asked the now injured hero as soon as the villain fell unconscious. Head hurts," was Shinso's only reply. "Don't worry, I'll call Ida for a pickup, just stay strong, okay?" Ibara replied in a slight panic, racked with guilt as Shinso's current state was a result of her plan. "I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive me," Ibara thought to herself as she called Ida. Flood zone. We see both Izuku and Mei flying towards the flood zone. Izuku using his gyrokinetic module, and Mei was using repulsors. They had used the codec to ask who was at the flood zone. It turned out that two, Kirishima, Kodai, Shishida, and Awaze had all landed in the zone, with Tsu, Awaze, and Kirishima lading in the water, and the other two lading on the boat. Tsu has to assist both Awaze and Kirishima in getting out the water, which was lucky as Kirishima was attacked by a humanoid shark who attacked to bite him in half, and he was only saved by his hardened body and Tsu saving him. As Izuku and Mei landed on the ship, scaring their fellow classmates the process, they caught sight of all the villains in the water and Izuku starting thinking of how to get everyone out. "Hey guys, you all right?" Izuku asked as the startled Kirishima punched him in the face, whilst his force field was activated. "OW, yeah, we're all fine, at least until I punched you," Kirishima replied, nursing his now aching fist. "Sorry about that, Kirishima," Izuku replied as he retracted his helmet. "So that's the force field your classmates were talking about," interjected Shishida, stunned at the technique's effectiveness. "Yeah, it's really cool but really unfair to fight against. Ribbit," Tsu said bluntly in response. "Anyone enough gawking at my tech, let's get down to the business of getting you guys out of here. Hey Mei, how many we dealing with?" Izuku stayed firmly thinking up a plan whilst asking Mei for information. Biometric scanner counts. 27 villains in total, all with water or physiology-altering quirks. Mei replied after giving the somewhat daunting numbers. "How the hell are we meant to fight 27 villains who all have the terrain advantage?" asked Awaze in a panicked tone. "Simple. We don't. Firstly, even if we did, we'd have the element of surprise since they clearly don't know our quirks. Why else would they drop Tsu here?" Izuku replied, gesturing to Tsu. "Secondly, Mei, if you would." Izuku continued as Mei pulled a spherical object from her belt, activates it, and dropped it into the water. KRKH. All the water on the surface suddenly froze near instantly. "That should keep them busy until we get out of here," Izuku said, ignoring the stunned faces of his classmates. "So here's how we're getting out. I'm going to surround us in my force field, and then use my gyrokinetic module to fly us over the now frozen water. So huddle up quickly, the more I expand my force field, the weaker it gets." Izuku continued as he laid out his plan of escape. As everyone huddled up, Mei stayed outside the field to run defense, using her suit to summon weapons if need be. However, something no one noticed happened. The ice layer cracked from a force coming from below. As the group was halfway across the frozen lake, the ice burst open with ferocious force, and a villain with a terrified face came flying at the invisible barrier with such force that the villain died on impact and broke the barrier, causing Izuku to lose focus and drop everyone. In response, Mei crafted a lesser form of her cold fusion cannon and blasted the broken ice area, causing a large explosion. From the smoke stepped two villains, a large shark man mutant hybrid in denim shorts, and a blue-skinned man in opulent gold armor with a fish scale design wielding a trident sword. "Gah, so cold you monsters will pay for that," yelled the blue man in rage, pointing his sword at the group. "Nom noms," was the only thing the shark man said as he pointed specifically at Kirishima. "Okay, looks like we're fighting after all," Izuku said as he recovered, checking his power supply. "One of those two threw a villain with enough force to break my barrier. Even though it was weakened due to its expansion, it still should have taken about half a ton of TNT to break it," Izuku said over codec as a warning to the others. In response, Shishida took on his larger beast form. Kirishima hardened up to maximum, whilst Tsu, Awaze, and Kodai took combat stances. Thankfully for Tsu, the area wasn't cold enough to cause her to hibernate. Shark, eat the red one, and the two with black hair. Ayatuma shall slay the beast, the frog, and the two machines. The now named Atuma stated with confidence as he dashed forward with sword upraised that came down on Shishida's toughened hide. The attack drew vital fluid, causing Shishida to retreat. First vital fluid goes to Atuma. The villain yelled with triumph and pride before going for another attack. Karake Kum, only to be blasted point blank by Mei's cannon. Did you just kill him, Ribbit? Sue asked her pink-haired friend. This version of my cannon is weaker than the one you saw during the trials. Beside, if I wanted to kill him, I'd use the Absolute Zero configuration, sonic gun, or my vibrokinetic axe. Mei replied nonchalantly. HRR. I'm going to peel that armor of your body and feed to my pet piranhas. The still-living villain stated in anger. His armor was now significantly broken, and there was vital fluid leaking from his mouth, but otherwise he was fine. The villain then charged them again, and the group of heroes prepared for a fight. Meanwhile, Kirishima did not dislike or even hate many things, other than unmanly things like perverts, bullies, cowards, and villains. He described himself as a positive guy, but this Sharkman-MS determination to eat him was getting annoying. How is this guy so determined to eat me? I can't look that appetizing. Kirishima thought to himself in a panic as the Sharkman attempted to bite his head off for the 50th time. Sure do hope Away's and Kodai's plan works. He thought, desperately hoping that their plan saves him from becoming fish food. Said plan was soon revealed as Kodai threw several small chunks of ice that Away's had welded together that upon getting with several feet of the Sharkman grew to the size of boulders, all merged together. Their resulting microglacier crashed into the bewildered villain in an impact that would kill a lesser person. However, just as Away's and Kodai were tending to Kirishima's bite marks, the Sharkman emerged from the icy rubble and charged at the trio, roaring with bloodlust. In a panic, Kodai grabbed another ice pebble and threw it into the villain's mouth, expanding its size to fill it in its entirety. Whilst the villain was trying to remove the ice, Kirishima took the opportunity, harden, and attack. Red gun turret. The redhead yelled as he uppercut the Sharkman with such force that not only did the ice shatter, but so did all the villain's teeth in a stunning display of gory failed dentistry. The outcome of which was Kirishima remaking his wrist and the villain falling unconscious from the sheer pain. Hey Kirishima, you alright? Away's asked the redhead as he was nursing his wrist. Yeah, I just uppercut a shark in the jaw. That was the manliest thing I've ever done. The redhead stated in testosterone-fueled joy, getting only relieved looks from the other two. No wonder Tetsu got on with this guy so well when we met at the bus station. Away's thought to himself as they make their way towards the others to assist them. Back with the others. Apparently, they didn't need help, despite Atuma's incredible strength, durability, and endurance, fighting 4 individuals, all with different abilities, ending up leading to his undoing. After just over 10 minutes of fighting, the mighty villain could hardly stand without his using his sword as a cane to hold himself up. His armor was reduced to armored greaves and waist guard, as well as a minimal amount of torn scale mail on his torso. His body was laden with cuts and bruises. He had also lost several teeth. Throughout the battle, the quartet had used the codec to stay 10 steps ahead of the villain. Shishida and Izuku would close in for close-range beatdowns, whilst Mei provided long-range attacks. And if Atuma was about to land an attack, Tsu would pull the would-be victim away using her tongue. HRR, you think that you have HRR, one eye. HRR will never HRR yield to the like of HRR, you. Atuma stated in between, heaving deep breaths in a vain attempt to recover his stamina. In doing so, he used his last bit of strength to charge Tsu in a vain attempt to gain one win. In response, Izuku pushed Tsu away using his gyrokinetic module and charged the villain with fist upraised. The clash ended in a cross-counter. The area was quiet as the two stood there, Izuku unharmed and waiting for the villain's next move. Atuma breathing heavily until he finally, at last, fell in defeat from his injuries and utter exhaustion. Stars and garters, that villain just didn't know how to give up. Shishida expressed with exhaustion and respect. Could have been a great hero in another life. Izuku replied, feeling pity for the powerful villain. Anyway, let's get back to the... Izuku couldn't finish before he was cut off by Aizawa on the codec. To all students, Don't come to the plaza. I repeat, don't take any path close to the plaza. The main villain is too strong. Wait for the staff. I repeat, wait for the staff. Aizawa practically yelled over the codec in a panic. Aizawa-sensei, are you okay? Izuku asked, getting no response. We have to go help Aizawa and Vlad. Izuku stated, getting confused looks from the rest of the group, except Mei. Didn't Aizawa just say not to go to the plaza? Asked Away's confused. We're heroes, going to places where we're told not to is our job. Mei replied, getting a smile from Izuku, knowing that he was about to say the same thing. Yet, wouldn't be very manly of us to let our teachers die now, would it? So who's within? Stated Kirishima with charisma, causing the group to give each other looks and smiles. Let's do this then. You'd better have a good plan, though, replied Kodai after not talking throughout the entire ordeal in a voice so soft one could hardly hear it. I do have the beginnings of a plan, but we're going to need help from a friend. Izuku replied as he looked at Mei, who used the codec to get in touch with Melissa. Let's go then, people, yelled Kirishima enthusiastically. They then all began quickly making their way towards the plaza. Little did they know that they would end up fighting for their lives. So, this was the end of part 3 of this series. Stay tuned for next part of this series, and if you like this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Until next time.